consider an uncontested divorce a divorce where the parties are in agreement to end their relationship and also in agreement with how their assets would be divided. I would say uncontested divorces are few and far between. You have to be in agreement on basically everything. If you and your spouse are in agreement, one, to get divorced, that's the first hurdle. So you have to be in agreement that you're going to get divorced. You have to be in agreement about how assets are divided. Who's getting the house? Who's getting this car, that car? Who's getting the gym equipment? You need to be in agreement about how debts are going to be split. Who's paying off, the washer and dryer that we purchased? Who's keeping that? You also need to be in agreement about what's happening with custody. How often is each parent going to see the children? You have to be in agreement about child support. Who's paying that health insurance? There are a lot of agreements that have to be made. At the point that there's something that you cannot agree on, then we need to work on that. And so we might be working on it through mediation, or if you can't settle it at mediation, we might be working on it in front of a judge, and the judge is going to make the decision for us. And so a case switching from uncontested to contested is very easy and very quick. Uncontested divorces can be fairly quick. There's a 60-day cooling off period in Texas. That means that from the time you file your petition for divorce until the time a judge can sign a final divorce decree, which is the document that actually gets you divorced, there has to be a period of 60 days. So let's say you all have agreed on everything and you come to me and say, hey, I want to get divorced. We're in agreement on everything. These are the terms of our agreement. I will draft that petition for divorce. I'll draft that divorce decree. You all can sign it. We can be done, and we're just waiting until the 60 days have passed so that we can file that with the court. Ever since COVID, we don't have to do a prove-up hearing anymore in most of the counties that we practice in the DFW area. A prove-up hearing is basically where you're going to go to court with your attorney and they're going to ask you a bunch of questions like, okay, you want to be divorced. This divorce decree that you're handing me, it's fair and equitable. You're not pregnant right now. You've been in Texas for 6 months and you've been in this county that you're filing in for 90 days. All right, so you answer all of those questions and then the court can divorce you. But since COVID, they allow us to do that by affidavit. So now I don't even have to go to the courthouse to get you divorced. You might never see the inside of a courtroom if you come to us with everything agreed, but it does take that 60-day waiting period. Contested divorces are much more common because there's often going to be something that you can't agree about. I mean, you're getting divorced for a reason. You probably don't agree on everything. And so it's going to be common that we have to work out the kinks of at least a few items in your divorce. The most common things that I see people fighting about are going to be custody. Everybody loves their kids and wants as much time with the kids as possible. And, they're willing to fight over that. And so I think that is really common. Another thing that they're going to fight about is the debt. And, someone may have had a gambling problem or a drinking problem. That's where all of our money went. Now there's not as much money in our bank account to split because you spent it all doing dumb things. And so, who's going to pay the lion's share of the debt? Who has the ability to pay that debt? And so that division is something that people will often fight about. Also the house. Oftentimes, one party wants the house and the other one wants to sell it. Well, as long as the party that wants the house can afford it, whether it's through, a division of the estate, they take less of the retirement because they're keeping the house, the court's going to let that person keep the house. A lot of people ask if they need a lawyer in order to get divorced. No, you don't. It's called being pro se. That means you represent yourselves. But I will say that Abraham Lincoln warned that a person who represents themselves has a fool for a client. Now, I'm not calling you a fool, but I'm a divorce attorney, and whenever I got divorced, I hired an attorney. So I was able to draft my own pleadings, and I did things to try to keep my costs down, but I was still, responsible in court for putting on evidence, and that's really hard to do when you're pro se. It would be really hard for me to question my ex and not come off as vindictive or vicious. I'm like, and you did this to her, didn't you? It would just sound bad. And so it's much better when you have an attorney that is doing that heavy lifting for you and presenting it. Oftentimes, you might have heard the saying, it's hard to see the forest through the trees, right? You're too close to the situation. You don't know what way is up. And so, my attorney actually laughed at me because I would call her for advice. Like, how do I respond to this text message? Or what do I do? And she's like, you know this, like you're a divorce attorney. But when you're too close to it, it's really hard to navigate. Contested versus uncontested divorces. If you have any questions, we would love to help you. Give us a call.